Alright, I am back with another Destiny video. A little bit late because there wasn't a ton happening in the game. There was some news here and there, but I've already written about that a lot, so I don't know if I'm going to actually cover that here. Instead, what I kind of wanted to do was a review, in effect, of Season of Arrivals, because now we're pretty much done with it. There might be some sort of season-ending community event or live event or something that happens that has not been announced, but there are tiny hints that might happen. But besides that, I think the bulk of the content is definitely over with, and it's time to recap kind of how the season went compared to other seasons, and how it played out leading into Beyond Lights, with the obvious problem of there being a giant delay that extended the season to be much longer than any other one that came before it. And to me, this is kind of the fundamental issue with Season of Arrivals, in that I think it was a great season that became merely good because of the delay. I think it was budgeted probably very well and very tightly when it was going to lead into Beyond Light in September, but because of the delay, it's dragged. But you can't really fault the season for that. It's just they weren't going to be able to come up with stuff to kind of fill that content void, and then so things happen that are a little weird and off because they didn't happen when they were supposed to. And we'll get into that in a bit. There's a lot of different aspects to cover. I kind of just have the roadmap open here. I'll throw it up for a little bit. There's a ton of events. There are actual activities, and then there's stuff like weapons. There's kind of a lot to go through. I'm gonna try and do this pretty briefly, so this isn't like a 40-minute video, but we can start with the contact event, which was the main kind of activity of the season, in terms of you would always have to go and farm that for one reason or another. At first, that was like your main source of umbrals before umbral engrams just became kind of an avalanche that you would find literally everywhere. And you had to do that as kind of the precursor to the weekly interference missions. I like Contact. After the season of, Season of the Worthy, ball throwing Rasputin nonsense that you could fail if there was one drag on a plate for too long, like this was a relief. Like, this is a very hard event to fail. I don't know if I ever failed it, honestly, even when it first started. And it's all the fun parts of Gambit, like mote collecting and burning down bosses, without crappy parts of Gambit in terms of being like sniped by invaders and things like that. It's a lot of chaos. It's a lot of fun. I like the different mechanics of the taken bosses that would pop up every week. And eventually I kind of got sick of it when it was a prerequisite for interference. But again, 2 extra months of it is, you were going to get sick of it eventually. And it isn't like the most amazing thing that another season is kind of anchored in a public event is like the main new thing. But the other bit of new content, which was much more significant, even if you weren't playing it quite as much, is the Prophecy Dungeon. And this is the first time that we've had a full dungeon introduced as part of a season. And I love the Prophecy Dungeon. I think it's amazing. The visuals, the music, the puzzle design, the concept of taking both the Trials of the Nine armor and the Eververse Daito armor and putting it in there instead was a great decision, and that's something I hope we see more of in the future. I'm going to be sad to see Prophecy going away for a little bit with Beyond Light, but that's some sort of technical thing that they're probably going to be able to work their way through pretty quickly here and get it back. I think Prophecy alone makes Arrivals a real standout season because we just simply haven't seen anything like that before. The idea that you could farm rolls of the weapons you got on repeat every week is awesome, and that seems like something that should be implemented into raids to some extent, because you can't farm raids and you can farm everything else in the game. So Prophecy was amazing. All their dungeons are really good. Prophecy might be my favorite. Shattered Throne is really good too, but I don't know. Prophecy is it's so well designed and so creative. And I did not solo Flawless Prophecy, and I do not care to, so I don't have all those cool cosmetics you could earn. But that was another thing. They gave you exotic cosmetics for doing either solo or Flawless or solo Flawless. So that was very cool. Before we move on to other events like holidays and stuff, we have the loot. And I think everybody is very happy with how the Umbral system went. this is the ability to kind of target farm, at least a coin flip between two different weapons and armor, and then there were ones for different armor sets too. And I really think that this is something that they should implement in the future. Like every time this comes up now, like how could Iron Banner farming be better? Make Iron Banner Umbral engrams. Or like how can Festival of the Lost be better? We'll make Umbral engrams for target farming. The rolls on the guns you want. Like the Umbral system is very good, and that is something that I hope lives beyond this season. I think it needs some tweaks, like your inventory constantly being mashed full of Umbrals is not ideal. The focusing stuff is a little clunky with all the different currencies and stuff you needed for that. But fundamentally, that was a very, very good way to grind out rolls, and I liked that they brought in some of the past season weapons, so if you missed those, you could grab those. The actual gear itself, I really liked I don't know what to call this set, this darkness set of weapons they had. There are so many cool ones. I really love the Hollow Words fusion rifle because it has Vorpal on it. Obviously, the big star of the season is Falling Guillotine, which is just an absolute monster. Temptation's Hook would be really good if the heavy ammo cost for the spin move or the projectile move was lower. Maybe they can fix that in the future. I like what's the pulse called? Cold Denial. I like Cold Denial. That's a very good pulse. The auto rifle's good too. I'm probably missing one thing, but the exotics also same thing. Wither Horde, very creative, very cool, very powerful. Ruinous Effigy might be the most creative exotic they've ever done. Like kind of by far, all the different mechanics with that. I think Bungie has been really on fire with their exotics lately. There have been just so many more hits than misses. And when I think about like bad exotics from the past 3 seasons, I think of Tommy's Matchbook. I'm really having trouble even thinking of ones that are like truly bad. There's been so many good ones, and that trend appears to be continuing with Beyond Light, which is cool to see. Besides that, we had the weekly interference quest. This was fine. I hated the Umbral Trace step every week because you try to do it as efficiently as possible, and that meant doing things like playing Reckoning or playing Menagerie using a trace rifle to get disintegrations, and like I hated that step. The quest itself was very cool. The first 3 to 6 times you did it. After that, not so much. It got a little repetitive, and it didn't really change week to week as much as I kind of hoped. The lore from Eris was very cool. That was probably the best part of it, is kind of analyzing the lore there. And I forgot about Traveler's Judgment. Or Traveler's Chosen? I always mix that up. The Traveler's Sidearm. I thought of that because that has a really good lore entry too, connected to Zavala and Savathun creeping on him from the skull in the tower. There's been a lot of really good kind of story stuff like that this season. The end of the interference quest, this is one of those things where the delay really hurt them, where it would have been well timed if they just, if the Nokra stuff was like a couple weeks before Beyond Light launched, which would have been like over a month ago, and the fact that we had to wait this long for it was kind of annoying. Similar for the Evacuation quest, where that was a really good quest in terms of story stuff and reading the lore about how everyone stayed behind, except Anna and Rasputin. It was a little... It's weird to finish that and be like, and then the Guardian left Mars for the last time, and then it's like there's still 2 months left until Beyond Light. So that didn't really pan out. And also, this is just one of those things where I wish any of those characters had some new voice work to go with the end of their stories, and that we weren't just reading about it in the lore, but I guess it's a budget thing, and like every time they do voice work, they have to translate it into 20 languages. So this is why we get just more focused story entries that are much easier and much cheaper to do. That said, this is kind of another thing disrupted by the delay. So a lot of the filler that we've had this season are just different events. We've had Moments of Triumph, we've had Solstice of Heroes, and then they had to add Festival of the Lost because it's Halloween and you always have it this time of the year. But with the delay, that meant it got crammed into this season. Moments of Triumph was cool. I enjoyed going back and doing some of the old raids. I'd never done like the raid layers before, so that was cool. And it was fine. It wasn't anything like super crazy. I know people were mad about like the 7 trials wins or something, but you could skip some of them and still get the title. I never did. I think I skipped one of the raids and I still got the title because the Nokris thing got me the last step. Solstice of Heroes was fine. The armor was cool. The idea that you could get the stuff as ornaments this year was better. The fact that it was from Eververse was a little weird. But you did have to like get to the point where you were allowed to buy it as an ornament. The EAZ, I always liked the EAZ. I just wish it had changed a little bit. They didn't really change anything from last year. And then speaking of not changing anything, we have Festival of the Lost, which is almost identical except worse because of the cipher issue with the Haunted Forest, which made you run a bunch of other activities before you could even run the forest. And there was no point running the forest to get deep into the branches because you would get the chests anyway. So people were just AFK farming. And the rewards are not even very good. They're just 2 auto rifles with random rolls that are not especially good in the face of all the other very good auto rifles that we currently have. And there were no new ones. So that was not ideal. You'll notice I'm not really talking about PvP because I didn't play any PvP this season. Not really at all. I played maybe 1 or 2 trials weekends over the course of this whole, 4 months or whatever it's been. I don't know. I can't really comment on PvP. I'm sure it was as controversial as ever, but the sandbox I feel has not been too terrible as of late. There's always the cheating problems on PC, which is not where I play PvP anyway. Bungie, as of right now, they're starting to shut down some of the cheating websites, but there are an infinite amount of cheating websites, so we'll see how that goes. All in all, I think this might have been like the strongest season Destiny has done if you kind of take it all together and you cut out all the dead time caused by the delay. Like I'm kind of pretending to try to envision what it would have been like if we actually did all this on schedule. And maybe I think like ones like Season of Opulence with Menagerie and just adding more that way would have been good. But we had the Prophecy Dungeon. That's like a very significant thing that this season added that is not normally a part of seasons. And we had good exotics. The activities that were there, albeit small scale, were fun. And this would have been a really kind of tight narrative season with the week-to-week interference quest and the lore every week. And the lore was supposed to end, I think, like right before Beyond Light hit. And so the last thing was going to send us to Europa. And then a week later, we'd be going to Europa. That obviously did not work out, unfortunately. But I'm trying to envision the season of like how it would have been if it was properly on schedule. And I think it did almost everything right. Like the things I'm complaining about, like Festival of the Lost things, are not major. And all in all, this is a very solid season. It was much better than Season of the Worthy, certainly. I think it was better than Season of Dawn. Season of Undying doesn't really even count. It was like half an activity attached to Shadowkeep. I do not know what's going to happen with the next season now that we've had a 2-month delay, if it'll be shorter, what's going on with that, but perhaps that's something Bungie will spell out in the next couple of weeks here. All in all, this was a very solid season. It just got dragged out too long, kind of through no fault of its own, and that made it worse than it would have been otherwise. But I'm encouraged by kind of the direction that they moved in here, and I hope they retain some of the more positive things like Umbral engrams moving forward. And yeah, so that's my thoughts. You can let me know what you think in the comments. We'll see what they announce next week. Every week now they're announcing something new, whether that's next gen information or more Europa teases. Like they have to be running out of teases at this point, so we'll see what's left. But I will try not to miss my Wednesday, Thursday video next time. But I wanted to kind of get this out now that we know that we're pretty much done with the season. I do think there's a live event coming. We'll talk more about that later. But yeah, for now, take care. Subscribe if you want. And if you made it this long, I appreciate it. All right. Thanks a lot.